Hello, Lindsay Hoyle talking at the moment. Welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes today, Wednesday the 12th of January 2022. And I'll knock the sound on in a moment. There's going to be a softball question, I think. Oh no.
Mr. Speaker, I know that the whole House will want to join me in paying tribute to Jack Dromey.
Calling you a gobshite.
His working life was devoted to his trade union members and in recent years his constituents in Birmingham, Eton. I was deeply saddened to hear of his death, and my thoughts are with Harriet and the family and all those
don't feel
who
emotions.
knew him
You're
as
not
a friend.
real human being. You're not a real
Mr. Speaker,
boy,
I want to
bastard.
apologise. I know that millions of
Did you break the
people
law? Did you break the
across
law?
this country have
Fucking
made
lock him up.
extraordinary sacrifices
Lock him up.
over the last 18 months.
Lock him up.
I know the anguish that they have been through, unable to mourn their relatives.
While you were partying like a
unable to
twat.
live their lives
While you
as
were
they want,
partying
or to
like a
do the
motherfucking
things
twat.
they love.
Fuck you.
And I know the rage
Fuck you.
they feel with me
Do you?
and
Yes.
with the government I lead
You know the rage.
when they think that in Downing Street itself the rules are not being properly followed by the people who make the rules.
Yes.
And though I cannot anticipate the conclusions of the current inquiry,
Oh, fuck off!
I have learned enough
don't know- she doesn't know
to
where
know
he was
that there
there.
were things we simply did not get right. And I must take
Didn't get
responsibility.
right. Resign, you cunt!
Number 10 is a big
Resign.
department with the gardeners as an extension
Absolute
of the office,
gobshite.
which has been
Oh,
in constant use
fuck
because
off.
of the role of fresh air in stopping the virus. And when I went into that
gonna
garden
phase it
just
out.
after 6 on the
He's
20th
gonna-
of May
Oh, we just remembered.
2020,
Yeah, he went out, nipped out. There
to
were lots of
thank
people
groups
there.
of staff before going back into my office
Oh,
25
he's phasing
minutes
it out.
later to continue working.
It was perfectly
I believed
justifiable,
implicitly that
wasn't
this
it?
was
You cock!
a work
You
event.
fucking arsehole! You absolute
Speaker,
piece of shit!
With hindsight,
I went out.
I should have sent everyone back inside.
I didn't
should
know
have
about
found
this.
some other way
Bullshit! Your
to thank
fucking
them.
parliamentary
And
fucking
I should have
secretary
recognised
sent
that
the
even if it
invite
could be
out.
said
Nothing
technically to
happens
fall
without your
within the
say-so.
guidance, there would be millions and millions of people who simply would not see it that way.
Fucking hell, he's
People
spent the
who
last
suffered
24 hours
terribly.
talking to his lawyers.
People who were forbidden from meeting loved ones at all,
See, he's reading.
inside
Doesn't normally
or
read,
outside.
does he? Normally shoots in the hip.
and to them and to this House, I
Fuck
offer my
off.
heartfelt
Oh
apologies.
my God! Just fucking.
And all I ask is that Sue Gray be allowed to complete her
you
inquiry into
motherfucker.
that day and several others, so that the full facts
No,
can be
11
established. And I will, of course, come back to
parties,
this House
11
and
parties
make
he's
a
contacted.
statement.
11
Mr.
parties.
Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and
You're having a
others.
party, my
In
God.
addition to my duties in this House,
I didn't
I
notice.
shall have further such meetings later today.
Piss off, ratbag. Absolute cockhound.
My constituent
piece
Carol
of
Ridgway
shit.
faces 8 weeks of stress and worry as she waits for an urgent appointment at the local breast clinic in North Wales. Yet, despite the pandemic, 85% of patients in England wait only 2 weeks for their urgent suspected cancer referrals. What can my right honourable friend do to ensure equality of healthcare across Britain?
Resign.
I thank my honourable
Resign.
friend for his
Fucking
question.
resign.
I'm sorry about the case that he raises. Of course, health is a devolved matter, but I thank our NHS colleagues across the whole of the UK,
also apologise.
and I point out that the
Yeah,
Welsh government will benefit from an additional
As if.
3.8 billion of funding this year, plus a further 270 million to support the response to COVID, Mr. Speaker.
Fake apology.
We don't come
Blaming
to
others.
lead the opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join with the comments about Jack Dromey? We will, I think, be doing tributes in due course in relation
Join
to
them in the
Jack.
garden to thank them, but didn't.
Well, there we have it.
Party.
After months of deceit and deception, the pathetic spectacle of a man who's run out of road. His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party.
Yes, you can't.
It is so ridiculous.
It's
that
just off the
actually
charts, isn't it?
offensive to the British public.
Yes.
He's finally
Yes.
been forced to admit
Sorry,
what
take myself down a
everyone
bit,
knew, that when
shouting
the
a bit.
whole country was locked down, he was hosting boozy parties in Downing Street.
Yeah.
Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
Yes. Fucking resign. Fucking sit down, you horrible little thatch roof cottage, Mr. Speaker. Blob of custard. Go fuck yourself to death.
I think somebody will be going for an early cup of tea as well. Can I just say, the question's been asked. I want to know the answer. Your constituents want to know the answer. I don't need any extra help either. So please, Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the point that he's making about the event that I attended. I want to repeat that I thought it was a work event, and
what the fuck off! Fuck off!
I regret very much that we did not do things differently that evening.
Gigantic,
Speaker, as I've said,
cavernous,
and I take responsibility and I apologise. Mr. Speaker,
I didn't know it was a party.
As his political point, I don't think
life's
he
a
should
party for me.
preempt the
I don't know what a
outcome
party
of
is.
the inquiry.
I don't know a party if I saw one.
He will have a further opportunity, Mr. Speaker, I hope, to question me as soon as possible.
Absolute shower of shit, these people.
Keir Starmer.
Well, that apology was pretty worthless, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let me tell him why this matters. Yesterday, in this chamber, honourable members told heart-wrenching stories about the sacrifices people across the country were making. This House and the whole country were moved by the honourable member for Strangford as he talked about his mother-in-law dying alone. He was following the rules, whilst the Prime Minister was partying in Downing Street. Is the Prime Minister really so contemptuous of the British public that he thinks he can just ride this out?
Resigning is the only option. Yes, Jürgen.
Mr. Speaker, I heard the testimony of the honourable member opposite, and
you laughed about it, didn't you, sick little fuck? You sick little twisted fuckball.
It was deeply moving. Nobody who heard that could fail to have been moved. And I know that people up and down the country made huge sacrifices throughout this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, and I understand the anger, the rage that they feel at the thought that that people in Downing Street were not following those rules.
You daft cunt! Not people in Downing Street! Oh, you daft, idiotic piece of megalomaniac shite!
And I have and will continue to apologise for what we did. But, Mr. Speaker, he must wait for the inquiry, which will.
Oh, you're going to wait for the inquiry to see if it was a party or not, I assume. He thought
Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister's former Health Secretary broke the rules, he resigned. Yes. And the Prime Minister said he was right to do so. When the Prime Minister's spokesperson laughed about the rules being broken, she resigned. And the Prime Minister accepted that resignation. Why does the Prime Minister still think that the rules don't apply to him?
Yes! Yeah, you big fucking blob of shite.
That's not what I've said, and I understand the point that he makes.
No, you don't. You don't understand shite,
Mr. Speaker, I regret the way things happened on the evening in question, and I apologise. But if I may say to him, I do think it would be better if he waited until the full conclusion of the inquiry, until the full facts are brought before this House, Mr. Speaker, and he will then have an opportunity to put his points again.
If it was a party. I need an inquiry to see if it was
working, Prime Minister. No. Everyone could see what happened. Exactly. It started with reports of boozy parties in Downing Street during lockdown. The Prime Minister pretended that he had been assured there were no parties.
How that even though he was fucking there!
I do not know. Exactly. Then the video landed, blowing the Prime Minister's first defence out of the water. So then he pretended he was sickened and furious about the parties.
Yeah, of course he was.
Now it turns out he was at the parties all along.
Absolutely.
Can't the Prime Minister see why the British public think he's lying through his teeth?
Yes!
Prime Minister, it was what the public think, not what a member is saying.
Yes! Fucking great one. None that, you lying piece of shit. That's what I fucking think.
And I certainly don't need any help from round here. If somebody wants to help me, they can help somewhere else. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's up to the right honourable gentleman to choose how he conducts himself in this.
People are calling you a liar.
He's wrong. He's wrong. I say to him that he is wrong.
Absolute piece of shite.
He is wrong in what he said in he said what he is wrong what he said is wrong in several key respects. But, Mr. Speaker, that does not detract from the basic point that I want to make today, which is that I accept that we should have done things differently on that evening.
What the fuck? That's not the main point. You can't be a murderer and say, "Oh, I wish I'd done it differently. Wish I'd killed that person." Get you off the fucking hook!
Which I operated.
You fucking clanging crap hound!
He should wait before he jumps to conclusions, Mr. Speaker. A lawyer should respect the inquiry. I hope that he will wait for the inquiry and brought to this House.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, so we've got the Prime Minister attending Downing Street parties, a clear breach of the rules. We've got the Prime Minister putting forward a series of ridiculous denials which he knows are untrue. Yes. A clear breach of the ministerial code. That code says ministers who knowingly mislead Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation.
Yes.
The party's over, Prime Minister. The only question is, will the British public kick him out, will his party kick him out, or will he do the decent thing and resign?
Yeah! Fucking resign, you cunt!
Mr. Speaker, I just want to repeat that I think that the right honourable gentleman, I know that it is his objective, and he's paid to try to remove me from office, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that, and I accept that. But may I humbly suggest to him that he should wait
broken
until
the law
the
and the ministerial code
has concluded. He should study it for himself.
An internal inquiry, not an external inquiry, not an independent inquiry, an internal inquiry.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I certainly wish
civil servant checking out what the civil servants in his office were doing
of May the 20th, Mr. Speaker, and I apologise for all the misjudgments that have been made, for which I take, Mr. Speaker, full responsibility.
Double fuck you.
The Prime Minister's a man without shame.
Yes. No shame.
The public want
honour.
answers to their questions. Hannah Brady's father, Sean, was just 55 when he lost his life to COVID. He was a fit and healthy key worker. I spoke to Hannah last night, Prime Minister. Her father died just days before the drinks trolley was being wheeled through Downing Street. And last year, Hannah met the Prime Minister in the Downing Street garden. She looked at the Prime Minister in the eye and told him of her loss. The Prime Minister told Hannah he'd done everything he could to protect her dad. Looking back, what Hannah told me last night was this. She realises that the Prime Minister had parted in that same garden the very day her dad's death certificate was signed. What Hannah wants to know is this. Does the Prime Minister understand why it makes her feel sick to think about the way that he's behaved?
Mr. Speaker, I sympathise
answer that question
deeply
cunt.
with Hannah,
Come on,
people
cunt.
who have suffered
Answer
up and
the
down this
fucking
country during the pandemic, and I repeat that I wish things had been done differently on that evening, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat my apology.
That's no defence. A murderer, a rapist, an arsonist, a fucking genocidal maniac would say the same thing.
Government, but I want to
once they're fucking
the people of this country, including
he
Hannah
said he didn't know about any fucking parties.
That, Mr. Speaker, we have been working to
and now
do
he's
everything we
claiming,
can to protect
he's now claiming,
and her family.
Get this, there was a fucking party. He didn't know.
That we have the most tested population in Europe, with 1.25 million tests being conducted every day.
Talking about vaccines, is he?
We've been working to ensure that this population, our country, has the most antivirals of any country in Europe. And Mr. Speaker, it's because of the efforts of the government, of officials, of staff up and down Whitehall that we've driven the fastest
give up, you lying
in
sack of
Europe,
shit!
One of the
Just
fastest
give
in the world.
up!
And
go home!
Reason, Mr. Speaker,
fuck off! Go find a beach to drink a fucking margarita on for the rest of your cunting life!
Economy in Europe, and one of the fastest growing
Get
economy, Mr. Speaker,
off
is
our
the G7.
television
and
screens,
Mr. Speaker,
you
whatever the mistakes
cunts!
that have been made on my watch, for which I apologise and which I fully
fuck you.
acknowledge.
Fuck
that
you.
Is the work,
fuck
Mr.
you.
Speaker, that has been going
fuck
on
you.
in number 10
fuck you. Fuck you. Look at him, fucking horrible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Education is one of the biggest factors when it comes to levelling up It's what ensures that people.
Oh my God! What the fuck is that?
The same opportunities.
Oh my
it's a
God!
Key part of my mission to transform lives.
You know when they were talking about they put some DNA of a human inside a pig to make a heart for a transplant? What the fuck? I didn't know they made a pig-human hybrid! Jesus Christ, get back to Moiston Vasey, you horrible man! What the fuck was that? Jesus Christ!
Up and down,
years of inbreeding, mate. Years of fucking inbreeding.
Burnley College was part of a successful proposal
that's
to become an
terrifying.
Institute of Technology.
Is that the new fucking horror fucking franchise coming out?
The growing University of Central Lancashire campus.
Who will survive? Pigman, posh pigman
in Lancashire.
Jesus Christ! That was a fright, wasn't it? Sorry, I apologise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I add my
a lot of time for this man.
Remarks in terms of Jack Dromey, someone who was a festy fighter for workers' rights and an inspiration to so many of us across this House for the way that he conducted himself. We will miss him, and condolences to Harriet and to the rest of the family. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister stands before us accused of betraying the nation's trust, of treating the public with contempt, of breaking the laws set by his own government. A former member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, Paul, wrote to me this morning. His father died without the love and support of his full family around him because they followed the regulations, Prime Minister. Paul said, as an ex-soldier, I know how to follow the rules, but the Prime Minister has never followed any rules. He does what he wants, and he gets away with it every time. The Prime Minister can't get away with it again. Will the Prime Minister finally do the decent thing and resign, or will his Tory MPs be forced to show him the door?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman, but I want to offer my condolences to his constituent who wrote to him.
Your insincere condolences mean fuck all to us, Johnson. You arrogant piece of Etonian shite.
Ian Blackford. It's an open and shut case. It's an event that should have taken place. It broke the law, Prime Minister. And what's so galling about that response is that the Prime Minister feels no shame for his actions.
No shame at all.
The public suffer pain and anguish at being kept apart from their families. All the while, the Prime Minister was drinking and laughing behind the walls of his private garden. The public overwhelmingly think that the Prime Minister should resign. Trust has been lost, and the public will not forgive or forget. If the Prime Minister has no sense of shame, then the Tory backbenchers must act to remove him. They know the damage is done. This weak and contentious Prime Minister can no longer limp on. The message from the public is clear. Remove this unfit Prime Minister from office and do it now.
Prime Minister.
Well, I just want to
out.
thank the right honourable gentleman
Get the fuck out!
Political advice, which I will take with a pinch of salt, since it comes from the Scottish Nationalist Party.
Fuck off calling it the Nationalist Party, you
objectively
piece
what this government
of
has
crap.
delivered over the last
you
18
massive
months would agree.
Fucking turd filled with bits of fucking corn.
Contrition for
shut
the
out
that have been
by
made,
a fucking
but
goblin.
We have delivered the fastest vaccine and the fastest booster rollout.
Vaccines, too great. Vaccines, vaccines. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
A record number of people back in work.
Horrible. Fred Westminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On
presided
Friday,
over the deaths of 170,000 people.
University Hospitals in Morecambe Bay, to talk about how they were managing COVID and the impact it was having on them. The impact is stark. They've got about 12 to 15% of their workforce away isolating, and 140 beds, that's about 20% of the total, blocked because they can't get people back out into social care and the community. So with that in mind, will my right honourable friend consider reducing the self-isolation period, if it's seen to be safe to do so, down to 5 days, and also accepting any MACA requests which come through to help get people back out into the community and into social care?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, well, we're certainly looking at reducing the isolation period and
Can't say
bring
it.
you more
Say on social media what I'm really thinking.
Possible. We'll certainly look at all matter.
This woke agenda. Not let me call
fundamentally
not
what
let
we
me
can do to
say that
alleviate
someone
the
looks like
pressures in his hospital
a sex offender.
is to fix the health and social care divide, which is what this government is also doing after a generation of neglect.
Stephen Farry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today's apology is too little, too late. If the Prime Minister was sincere, he could have apologised at any stage over the past 18 months, rather than waiting until he was found out. My constituents in North Down and people across the UK feel betrayed by the Prime Minister. We've had over 150,000 deaths from COVID over the past couple of years. We have seen standards in public life trashed. So for once, can the Prime Minister do the honourable thing and resign for the sake of the public health message and for standards in our democracy?
Yes!
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can only repeat what I've said, and I understand.
You can only repeat what you said, because you can only say three fucking things.
The effect of this pandemic on this country, and I certainly grieve for everybody who's died and who has suffered. But on his political point, can I propose that he waits for the inquiry to report?
Susan Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited my local job centre and I'm absolutely pleased to announce that the adult claimant count is down 28%.
Yeah, because they're on the fucking streets because of cunts like you horrible twat!
40%. Will the Prime Minister join me in thanking all the hard work of
turfing people out on the streets to freeze to death in the middle of winter? Well done.
And also
well done, twats.
The jobs revival that's
there's no one employed because there's no one claiming fucking benefits.
New jobs since March 2021.
We made it so difficult to claim benefits and no one's fucking claiming them.
Yes, indeed, Mr.
Aren't we
Speaker,
clever?
I thank her for
fuck
that,
you
and
fucking
it's
horrible
notable
little
that the opposition
fucking harpy
don't like to dwell on these points, but it is an astonishing fact that we have 420,000 more people in work now than before the pandemic began, and youth unemployment at a record low, Mr. Speaker.
Stephen Bonner.
How many people lost their jobs?
Mr. Speaker, another week, another scandal for this Prime Minister and his utterly shameless government. For 2 years, my constituents made sacrifice after sacrifice, spending time away from our loved ones, missing out on important life events. Some paid the ultimate sacrifice, while he partied away. Figures released just last night show that 79% of people in Scotland think the Prime Minister should step down. Does the Prime Minister now realise that it's clear to all that, while he may not understand how to be socially distant from others, there is no doubt that he is morally distant from the rest of us across these nations, and the best thing he can do now is go. Resign, Prime Minister.
Yeah, fucking resign, you cunt.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the SNP, and I repeat the point that I've made earlier on. I don't think that he should preempt or anticipate the inquiry.
John Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Colne Valley Regional Park runs through my constituency and the Prime Minister's. Would my right honourable friend join me in paying tribute to the volunteers who tirelessly work to preserve this precious green space? And will he work with me to create better protections for this park moving forward?
Prime Minister.
I certainly will. I join her in thanking the wonderful volunteers, and I will do what I can to assist her in protecting this beautiful green space.
Ruth Kepley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On a different topic to that of my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, but a related one. Last week at Prime Minister's Questions, the Prime Minister was asked about his previous claim about that his previous claims about inflation were unfounded, and in his reply, he told the House he had said no such thing. But within minutes, the inevitable happened, and people were watching videos on social media saying exactly that. So would the Prime Minister like to take this opportunity to correct the record and apologise for misleading the House on this matter?
Yeah, go on then.
That would be inadvertently misleading the House, Prime Minister.
Oh, fuck off.
No, Mr. Speaker, because I immediately said in my answer to the question that, of course, you had to be concerned about inflation at all times. What I said, I think on TV, was that some of the predictions then about inflation had not proved well-founded. But clearly, inflation is a serious risk, it is going up.
Fucking
and
piece of lying
what we
shit.
need
95
is a
Winston,
strategy.
resign and take your tacky wallpaper with you. Go on, fuck off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sling your fucking hook.
My constituent, Grant Bailey, went back to Afghanistan in September. He disappeared in December around Christmas time. We think the Taliban have him. Can my right honourable friend advise me and his family whether he knows anything about this man, who has him, and what is being done to get him home?
Richard Drax, could you sound like more of a fucking Bond villain? In fact,
raising the case
hang on,
with me.
what's the Bond villain in Moonraker called Drax? Oh my God! What more evidence do you need that these are the bad guys?
He's not apologised, Mr. Speaker, for breaking the rules and breaking the law. He's sorry because he's been caught.
Yes!
He is bang to rights.
Yeah.
So when my constituents were making unimaginable decisions, he was hosting a boozy party in Downing Street. So how does he think he can still maintain the one rule for him and another for the rest of us? He cannot, and he must resign.
Yes!
Mr. Speaker, I refer to the answer I gave earlier on.
Oh, fucking you cowardly cunts. And all of them, all those cunts on that side of the on that side of the House, fucking cowards.
Friday,
not one will speak out against the Prime Minister.
BBC
Come on, Bone!
Abolition.
Walking
second
fucking
reading.
skeleton.
It will abolish the BBC licence fee and require the BBC to be funded by subscription. In this day and age, it's ridiculous to have a state broadcaster. It's ridiculous that people are forced to pay a fee just because they have a television. And what is totally wrong, that people who believe the BBC to be institutionally biased have to subsidise them. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister, if he's free on Friday, come along and support the bill?
They're acting like nothing's happened. They're acting like it's business as fucking usual.
Judgment of
my God!
honourable friend.
This is unbelievable.
I understand some of his
cunt
strictures about the BBC,
broke the
Mr.
fucking
Speaker.
law.
I would also say that it is a
It's
great
not just a case of breaking the
institution.
ministerial code.
But
He
I will
broke
study what he
the
has to
law.
say, with interest.
He had a party at his place.
Mr. Speaker,
100 people invited.
That we
in the height of lockdown.
We didn't rate, but there's never been one that debased the office in the way that this. He's now forced to lie down in the back of his car to keep away from photographers. We all know the Prime Minister was sacked from 2 previous jobs for lying. So can he explain to the House why he believes that the great office of Prime Minister can be held to a lower standard than those previous jobs that he was sacked from? Prime Minister.
Well, I welcome the point that the honourable gentleman makes. In the partisan spirit with which I think it was intended, I don't agree with him. But can I suggest to him respectfully that he waits until the inquiry is concluded, which I hope will be as soon as possible.
Alberto Costa.
Mr. Speaker, washing machine manufacturers are considering
What the fuck? Filter systems in washing machines! These cunts are taking the fucking piss! Oh my God! Look at this cunt! Look at him! Fucking filters in fucking washing machines! Oh my God! This is the biggest joke I've ever fucking seen! Fucking hell! Oh my God! This is actually fucking hilarious. This is beyond satire. Oh, fuck off, you Alberto Costa fucking wanker!
Will the Prime Minister ask his ministers to look into the viability of my bill, which has cross-party support and seeks to introduce inexpensive microplastic filters on all new washing machines?
Well, I want to thank my
Sorry, I've just woken up for deflecting all this shit that I'm getting.
Microplastic pollution,
They're
Mr. Speaker.
acting like there's nothing going on. They're
I'm glad
acting like this is
DEFRA are
normal,
looking at the introduction of
everyday
legislation,
fucking shit
for
going down.
microfiber filters on
PMQs.
washing machines as
Filters
a
in
cost-beneficial
fucking washing machines.
solution.
Jesus
and
Christ.
I will make sure that my Right Honourable Friend Secretary of State for the Environment will keep him informed of how we're doing.
Mr. Brenda Shaw.
I think my brain's just
Thank
turned
you,
to
Mr.
mush.
Speaker. I too wish to join colleagues in paying tribute to Jack Droming. I knew him first in the early 70s and worked with him on the Grunwick strike. He will be greatly missed. Mr. Speaker, thousands of men and women in Afghanistan supported the NATO mission, and they have been abandoned.
Yeah.
In 6 months, we don't have a credible route to help people out of Afghanistan safely. The most recent update from the FCDO is directly contradicted by the UN. While the FCDO claims that from spring the UNHCR will make referrals to evacuation schemes, the UNHCR's own website is very clear they make no such reference. Mr. Speaker, is the government creating a Kafkaesque system to intentionally fail those we owe something to, or is this yet another case of the amateurism and hopelessness that prioritized pen farthings pets over human beings?
Mr. Speaker, I believe he does a serious injustice to the efforts of local councils up and down the country to look after people coming from Afghanistan, and I think he does an injustice to the efforts of the UK.
All questions
we are proud. We are proud already under Operation Pitting to have evacuated 15,000 people from Afghanistan, Mr. Speaker, and we've allocated 286 million in aid, in assistance for people in Afghanistan, and we are continuing to offer safe passage to this country from Afghanistan.
No, we're not. No, we're
Mr.
fucking
Speaker, the
not.
Prime
You
Minister
lying
will be aware
fucking
that
nonce.
Eastleigh was formed as a railway town, from producing locomotives and carriages to building gliders for the
God,
D-Day
Betty, he
landings.
was fucking
Eastleigh has a
popular in
proud...
school. Oh, sorry. My internet's been shut down. That's it. Been shouting too loud. Been getting too angry. Thank you very
railway
much.
heritage. Given this pedigree, the excellent transport links and the need to level up the south, does he agree with me that Eastleigh would make the perfect home for the new headquarters of Great British Railways?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is a great champion for Eastleigh, and as I told the House earlier, further details of the competition to identify the new Great British Railways headquarters will be announced in the coming weeks.
Mr. Speaker, in my constituency of Stockport, the average rent for a two-bedroom property is an unaffordable £800, and recently, in the last 13 years, the rents have been significantly increasing. One constituent contacted me recently to explain that she and her husband, who are in their 70s and suffer from ill health, have just been served with a Section 21 notice after living in the property for almost 20 years. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own manifesto promised a better deal for renters, which included abolishing no-fault evictions. So when will he scrap this practice and reintroduce the much-needed Renters Reform Bill, which seems to have been kicked into the long grass?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the first things I did when I became Prime Minister was to uprate local housing allowance so that people on social rent would be able to afford where they live more easily. It's a key component of tackling the cost of living.
Shut the fuck up. Right, there you go. Sorry about that. He's still yabbering away in my ear, but I thought I'd cut the feed for you because you don't need to hear the horrific homunculus that is Boris Johnson, a cross between Billy Bunter and a Dalek in the way that he speaks. Oh God, look at this little Tory. Let's bring him on.
Just some of the investment we've secured for Stoke-on-Trent. Would my right honourable friend agree, after decades of neglect, this Conservative Party is the only party that is levelling up opportunities in Stoke-on-Trent?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend. He is a fantastic champion for Stoke-on-Trent. And in addition...
I can't listen to any more of this. Sorry, I can't. I just can't. I'll tell you what, right, I'll turn the sound on for you, and I'm just going to do some jiggery-pokery, because I don't want you to be, without me for too long. Just see who's talking now.
I want to ask him that after a recent survey showed 37% of small businesses felt totally unprepared for the introduction of import controls, rules of origin and the upcoming SPS checks. So will he listen to the FSB and introduce financial and technical support to those small businesses, or is he just too busy drinking in his garden?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank her, but what we are doing is offering financial and technical support to businesses, and they are responding magnificently. And as we come out of the pandemic, we are seeing, as I said to the House earlier on, record numbers of people in work and youth unemployment at a record low.
Alicia Cairns.
Speaker, the motto of England's smallest county, Rutland, is multum in parvo, much in little, and never has that been more true than the last 2 weeks. The greatest Roman discovery in 200 years, an ichthyosaur, the greatest fossil discovery in 100 years. So will he please support us to build a new tourism industry and 2 heritage museums in Rutland?
Sorry, I've cut the sound again. I can't be arsed listening to these fucking creeps. I just can't. Can't be doing with it, can't be dealing with it. These people are the worst of us. They are the absolute fucking worst of us. I'm just going to disappear off for a moment. And I'm going to fix a couple of things so I can appear in big. Here's Boris Johnson standing up and talking shite, as always. So he's talking about... vouchers here. I don't know what these guys are talking about now. I wanted to talk about Boris Johnson fucking resigning forever, which would have been quite nice, but obviously that's not going to happen because Boris Johnson is a absolute fucking creep, and he does whatever Boris Johnson feels like fucking doing because he's like the worst. He's literally the worst human being ever in all of the world. In the history of the world, he is like the worst. No, I think Trump's the worst. Then Boris Johnson, and then maybe Adolf Hitler. Sorry, bring that up there. Sorry, didn't realise that I hadn't actually transferred the image across. Hello, and welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes. We did a bit of a longer PMQs than we normally do. My computer's just being annoying. We did a longer one than we normally do. Just bringing out the chat here so I can have a talk with you. Thank you very much, Richard, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Our constitution isn't worth the paper that it's written on. Exactly, it's an unwritten constitution, which is just. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? It's just absolutely embarrassing that the Prime Minister, the Crime Minister, can get away with breaking the motherfucking laws that his cunt parliamentarians fucking made. His parties made these laws, and then he fucking broke them. Now, I don't know about your experience. I've spoken to a few people about, what happened last May, no, the May before last now, May 2020. It was the height of lockdown. It was a time when you weren't allowed to meet anyone from any other household unless you were 2 meters away from them. There were people who were given fines for sitting on park benches, £200 fines. If you had a party, you would get a £10,000 fine. Friend of mine who I'd become estranged from because he had he was having a particular issue that causes you to push your friends away. I know that now. I didn't quite appreciate it at the time, but he was alone in his house in Manchester, and all through May and April he didn't get to see his family, and in June, and he died in his flat. And I can't help but feel that if things had been normal or a bit more normal, then there's a good chance that he would have been found before it was too late. As it was, he wasn't, and he might have been at the bottom of the stairs for 3 days. We really don't know. But the reason why no one came round was because we were told not to. We were told not to visit people. Keep in touch via text messages and shit. That's all well and good, but when you got a mate who's kind of like not great at replying to messages at the best of times, it's perfectly normal to go for 3 or 4 days without getting a response. Lots of people do this. You don't necessarily think, oh shit, you know, the worst has happened. And we were in this situation. And I don't have a problem with the regulations at the time because I know they were put in there to save lives in the long run. And I get that we had to buy time before we got a vaccination program up and running. We were too late to start the lockdown, and that cost the lives of thousands. The ring of protection around our care homes was a fucking myth. And as a result of that, tens of thousands of older people died. The greatest generation, the people who fought in the war, the people who the gammon fucking wank themselves silly over thinking about, they let them die. They let them die because the government didn't put in what needed to be done. Hundreds of healthcare workers died in that time because the government were given dodgy PPE contracts, which had just been found to be illegal. The VIP fast track lane has just been found illegal by a court case brought by the Good Law Project. And please, if you are going to support anyone right now, any political group in this country, please support the Good Law Project, because pursuing the government is incredibly expensive and someone's got to do it, because otherwise they'll do what Boris Johnson just did. They'll do what Boris Johnson just did, which I'll come to in a moment. But just to go back to this point, I didn't have a problem with the fact that we had to socially distance, we had to lock down. We couldn't have parties. We couldn't have people there at Dan's funeral, as many as we wanted to be. I felt like a fraud for going to the funeral because I hadn't seen him in years because we'd fallen out. And I took the place of someone else. My partner couldn't come with me to the funeral because we could only have 30 people and we had to be socially distanced. And we were lucky to have 30. I think they'd just changed the rules at that point. I think up to that point it'd been 10 or 15. People burying their parents, burying their brothers and sisters, burying their children, and not being able to grieve. My problem is that the Prime Minister and his cunt friends were having a fucking party. They went at a funeral. They weren't saying goodbye to someone who was terminally fucking ill. They were having a party. And then that cunt-mouthed piece of shit fucking arsehole Prime Minister of ours, the Etonian elite that honestly have been running this country for 200 fucking years, says, I didn't realise it was a party. That's his defence. That's what he just said in Parliament. He didn't realise it was a party. He thought that it was a work event. This is people drinking alcohol in his back garden. And yet, thousands of people around the country are like, yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Saw this morning, Boris Johnson, he's given the thumbs up to probably his mates in Russia, through his mate, what's his name, Lebedev, who owns the Evening Standard, Lord of Siberia. Yeah. Get the troll army out, get the bot army out. So what was trending this morning? Scum media. I defend Boris. It's all the media making this up. Scum media was trending this morning on Twitter. I stand with Boris Johnson was trending. Why? Because they pay thousands of kids from Vladivostok and Belgrade and in Serbia and Skopje in northern Macedonia, and they pay them to go on Twitter and pretend that there's this grassroots movement supporting Boris Johnson. The reality is, go out on the streets, fucking ask people about Boris fucking Johnson. They hate him. They hate him. They hate Cummings. They hate Rees-Mogg. They fucking hate them. They fucking hate them as much as we do. And yet they're still in power because they have the money. They have the power. And they're not going to give it up. They are not going to give it up without a fight. And here we are. Like, what a betrayal. You've got Boris Johnson undermining any kind of health message that the governments are going to come out with in the future. We don't know. What if there is a variant of COVID that is as transmissible as Omicron, and pretty much fucking everyone's had Omicron in the last few weeks. It's as transmissive as Omicron, but at the same time, it's as deadly as Delta. We will see deaths per day in the thousands again. We don't know. And then when Boris Johnson says, you're going to stay in, everyone's going to be like, fuck you. Coming at the worst possible time. Then you've got Djokovic, that twat over in Australia, saying, I tested positive, so I could get into the country. You tested positive for a virus, and you think that the antibodies that you've developed from having the virus is going to, stop you from passing it on in the future. I mean, just like the ridiculousness of trying to fall back onto this bullshit science of like, it's antibodies, it's fine. The number of antibodies that you get when you actually have a fucking that you actually have the vaccination is huge compared with the amount of antibodies you get after the infection. Because what your body does is it goes, I've fought off the infection now, and it kind of, doesn't make as many antibodies as it does when you get vaccinated. The vaccination is so important, and yet Djokovic is now being held up as anti-vax fucking hero. So you've got Djokovic, you've got Boris Johnson, pair of cunts, basically on the side of a deadly virus and making everyone feel humiliated, feel belittled, feel just aghast at the fact that we did all that. We followed the fucking rules to the letter. And meanwhile, he was having parties of 40 people in his cunting garden when we couldn't have 40 people coming to Dan's funeral. A guy who, all things being equal, at that fucking funeral, you would have had the Manic Street Preachers playing. You would have had fucking Biffy Clyro playing. You would have had fucking Courtney Love doing a set. That's what would have happened under normal fucking circumstance. This guy was an enemy journalist. He was on Chris Barker's, the picture of the year when he does at the end of the year, all the people who have passed away. He was on that for 2020. And yet there were 30 people at his funeral. Half his family couldn't be there. Boris Johnson has a party in his back garden of 40 fucking people. 40. And he's like, I didn't know it was a party. That's his excuse. We should have run a sweepstakes on this, shouldn't we? Of like, what will his excuse be? And up there, it could have been, I didn't know it was a party. What a piece of irredeemable shite. I'm just done. I'm just so fucking done with these cunts. They're just the worst fucking people. And people get more upset with people like you and me for swearing about it. You shouldn't swear. Don't be mean. Don't be mean. No, fuck that shit. This is the least we can fucking do. These people are destroying lives, and not just individual lives. They are destroying the fabric of our society. That's what they want to do. They want a disgusting, libertarian, individualistic society. They watch The Purge and masturbate furiously. That's the future they want, where everyone looks out for themselves and let the scum cleanse this. Let them fight amongst themselves for the entertainment of the rich. The fucking Jeremy Kyle show writ large. Let's have the posh boys presiding over everything and leave everyone else to fight it out amongst themselves. And they had it with Brexit. Brexit was excellent for divide and conquer, divide and rule. The working class completely divided. The middle class completely divided on Brexit. It was an emotional issue. But now it's not an emotional issue anymore. It's fucking real. We have the highest fucking energy bills in the fucking continent of Europe. I think we might have one of the highest heating bills in the world. In the fucking world, if you can believe that. We've got one of the worst responses to COVID. We've had the most deaths in the whole of Europe from COVID. We have had the worst economic hit because of COVID and Brexit of any country in the G7. Foreign direct investment is down. Trade is down. Imports are down. Exports are down. Everything is fucking down. And then people act surprised when Asda go, oh, well, we're not going to do that 100% British beef thing because we can't. And it's true. They fucking can't. Farmers in this country are so fucked. The ones who don't realise they're fucked are just like, I don't know what fucking planet they're living on, but they are fucked beyond repair. And this is exactly what we said would happen when we were doing the Three Blokes. It was one of the first fucking episodes when we were talking about farming. In fact, before we did the Three Blokes, I stood for Parliament. I stood as an MP in my local constituency in Liverpool of West Derby against Stephen Twigg, who was an established Labour MP, and I know he was. He's actually, I would have regarded him up to that point as a mate of mine. And yet I stood against him because he voted to activate Article 50 with no amendments, no provisos, no safeguards for EU citizens living here or British citizens living abroad. To achieve a Tory policy. It wasn't a Labour policy to act on the advice of the advisory referendum. It was a Tory policy, and Labour went with it. All my other MPs in Liverpool, they voted against it. They actually had the courage of the convictions, and they defied Corbyn's 3-line whip to vote for it. Mine didn't, so I stood against it. And I did a series of videos when I was standing, and one of them was about farming. And I spoke about the fact that, they're going to lose the subsidies. They're going to lose the Common Agricultural Policy subsidies. And they're going to go down. I mean, they're going to go down, and they're going to be bought out by American mega farms. Or even worse, American hedge funds fucking companies are going to step in. Hedge funds, most evil thing you can possibly imagine. Hedge funds are a group of people with money who place bets on failing businesses. So it's in their interest for that business to fail. And then they'll make loads of money out of that business that's failed. Not the people who've put their blood, sweat and tears, the hard work into actually, making the business work. It's trying something, trying to be an entrepreneur. Now they're happy. They can see all the people sacked. They can see the people who established the company out on the streets. They don't give a fuck. Hedge funds, Jesus Christ. And that's the way we're going. That is the way we're going. Farming, fishing, industry. All these fucking manufacturers, they're all fucking off. They said they would, and they are. They're going to pay an extra 150% on raw materials coming in because the truck drivers are having to wait at the fucking border at Calais for fucking 20 hours. They're going to pay that. And truck drivers aren't going to work. If you're a lorry driver, right, you only get paid per mile. If you're sitting in a traffic queue, you don't get fucking paid for that. Why is anyone going to bring anything to our country? I hate to point this out to people, but we're an island and we don't have that much in the way of raw materials. We don't have enough oil for our own domestic needs. We have to import it. We don't have enough gas for our own domestic needs. We have to import it. We don't have enough electricity for our own domestic needs. We have to import it through 2 massive fucking cables that come under the channel. And here we are. It's all right. We'll kick everyone away. We'll be fucking self-sufficient. There's a movie that I'd like you to watch. Don't watch it if you're already feeling down, because it is a bit of a downer. But I always think of this now when I think about Brexit, because it came up as one of the recommended for you videos on Disney Plus or Netflix or something. It was Grave of the Fireflies. And I was like, Gavin's like, oh, it's Studio Ghibli. Is that Studio Ghibli? And I'm like, yes. It's the same people who made Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke and My Neighbor Totoro. Just a lovely... He's the Walt Disney of Japan. He's the Walt Disney of Japan. Unfortunately, in this particular one, which is Grave of the Fireflies, which is a great fucking movie. But it's about a little boy and a little girl. And just to stick the dagger in, I think the director got his own daughter, who was 4 at the time, to voice the little girl. So she sounds properly like a little girl. And they decide to fend for themselves after their parents are killed in the bombing of Nagasaki or Hiroshima. They're sent to live with their auntie who's horrible to them, so they run away and they go and live in a cave. because they can be self-sufficient and sovereign people living in a cave. That's not the reason given in the cartoon, but yeah, it doesn't end well. What can I say? You don't expect that in the cartoon. Well, my generation might, because we grew up watching When the Wind Blows. You know, you had the snowman were walking in the air. Oh, that was all lovely. And the same guy, he did When the Wind Blows. It was the same company, wasn't it, who made When the Wind Blows, which is horrific. Absolutely fucking horrific. It's about two old people who die slowly as a result of nuclear fallout from a war. The bomb's gone off and they just die of radiation sickness. That's the plot. Sorry, spoilers. But yeah. Sovereign individual. The sovereign individual. I mean, even like Thomas Hobbes, 400 years ago, he wrote Leviathan, and in that he said you have to give up some of your rights, some of your individual rights. You give it up to the Leviathan, to the leaders, to society, in order for society to function. Man in his natural state is, his life is nasty, brutish, and short. Absolutely right. We need society to live. But the people in charge, from Trump to Erdogan to Duterte to Bolsonaro to Orban to Boris Johnson, all of these fucking motherfuckers, they don't believe in society. They only believe in their own wealth and power, and that's all they care about. And if I can't stress anything other than this one thing that I just want to keep repeating, they do not care about you. And this is really hard to get through the fucking skulls of these morons, these arrested development fucking man children who are running around the country going, I love Boris, and you're like, he doesn't love you. He wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why have you fallen in love with this man who is so objectively horrific, who couldn't make it more clear that he doesn't give a fuck about you or your family or your future or the future of this country or this country, full stop? It's a really hard conversation to have. It's like trying to explain to, I don't want to sound sexist, but screaming teenage girl, let's say in the 60s, screaming about the Beatles, and you have to explain that they don't actually care about her. Actually, in the case of the Beatles, they might have done, but Ringo probably not, but George definitely. But the point being, this idea that you see this character on TV and you feel like you've got this connection with them, and they give a fuck. They really, really don't. They really don't. These monsters in Westminster, they are the worst of us, and they've been elevated to a position of unconscionable power. So yeah, I was hoping for I don't know, an apology, a real apology. I didn't want to. I kind of thought, well, he might come up with some excuse. What would the most ridiculous thing be to say for an excuse? And his excuse has come out, and it's, I didn't realise it was a party. It's really what he said. Saw people drinking in his back garden, and he didn't realise it was a party. His principal parliamentary secretary sent out an email. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Anyone who knows anyone who's worked in the civil service or works in the upper echelons of government know that your secretary doesn't send out an email without your go ahead. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. He sanctioned that email, and he didn't know it was a party. That's his defence. That's his defence. It's not surprising, really. Of course, he'll go for ignorance, wouldn't he, over anything else? But Jesus fucking wept. I'm looking forward. I had to get a drink, by the way. I know it's midday, but I'm not driving anywhere today, so I thought, fuck it. I'll have a drink. I did ask permission off Catherine. So I'm not driving anywhere. I'm not picking the kids up from school or anything. She's like, no, don't worry about it, Graham. I said, is it all right if I have a drink? And she's like, yeah, you'll probably need one. She was absolutely right. Sorry for ignoring your comments. Number 3, £5. And says Good Law Project. Yes, absolutely. Please follow the Good Law Project. Thank you for the super chat, number 3. Head over to Twitter and follow at Good Law Project and support what they do, because it is really, really important. Thank God for you, Graham. Oh, thank you, because I'd love to swear as much, but I'm walking the street in Dublin. I may get arrested for being mad. You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh my God, David Faulkner. Thank you so much, David Faulkner. That's 158 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you so much, David. Never give up. Pay some bills too. Thank you very much, David. I really, really appreciate that. The next joke will be Sue Gray's report. Yes, it will make Prime Minister look serious. Yeah. The thing is, right? There's a thing in law, and look, I'm not a lawyer. I always want to sort of say, whenever we're talking about any of these, about medicine or science or the law, or whatever, I always try and make it very clear that I am not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a lawyer. So I defer as best I can to the people who are actually qualified to talk about this stuff. And I do that because I think it's wrong to pontificate about stuff that I am not an expert in. Now, I can, at the grand old age of 42, call myself a little bit of an expert when it comes to politics, especially British politics. I've got a degree in it, and I know a lot about it. I could call myself an expert in world geography, I guess, even though I've got no qualifications in geography whatsoever, not even a GCSE, but I have travelled to every country in the world. So that gives a certain amount of expertise above the average person in the street. But when it comes to law, when it comes to science, when it comes to medicine, I don't know any more than you are, you or anyone you might meet in the street, really. So I defer to someone who knows what they're talking about. And when it comes to the law, what I believe is the case, and you can blow me up about this and say I'm wrong, it almost always comes down to intent. So if a crime's been committed, you've got to ask whether that person intended to commit that crime. So a car crash is a really good example, right? If you went off the road and plowed into a bunch of people at a bus stop, that would be manslaughter. Or it might even be murder if you knew someone was going to be at that bus stop and you wanted to take them out. However, if there was a technical problem with the car and the car just fucking swerved and nothing you could do about it, then you are not going to be held to the same amount of responsibility in law as you would if you'd done it intentionally. So Boris Johnson's riposte there, where he says, I didn't know it was a party, it's quite genius, and it's something that he's obviously got the best lawyers in the country because he's one of the richest people in Britain, even though he still needs to scav money off his mates for his fucking wallpaper. But he can afford the best legal minds, and they've said it's all about intent. You say, oh, well, I didn't realise it was a party. And he's going to stick to that line now. You watch him. Will you watch that slimy little shit? He will stick to the line of not knowing it was a party. Like a disgraceful fucking rat, like the disgraceful rat that he is. And that's it now. I mean, I don't see him resigning. I don't see that. He would have to be pushed out by his MPs. But by the cowardly, craven, spineless, invertebrate fuckers who were standing up today in Parliament. I'm amazed they could stand up without a backbone. The way they were trying to ask questions about fucking washing machine filters. I mean, you couldn't make that up, could you? Well, washing machine filters. This is really important. We need to talk about this in Prime Minister's Question Time. That was the kind of thing that the same Brexit wankers were whinging about the EU talking about. Who are they talking about? Washing machine filters now. What a waste of time. Now they're like, oh, that was a valid question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can get why they wanted to know more about that. So, judging by that performance today, I don't think he's going to resign, and I don't think anyone's going to stab him in the back. I could be wrong. I could have a message now that I haven't read that has literally said, Graham, they've put the letters into the 1922 committee. But this is the thing. The Tories are scumbags. They are thieves. They are liars. Some of them are paedophiles. Some of them are rapists. Some of them are sex offenders. All of them are no good. All of them are evil, evil people. There isn't a single honourable Tory MP left. There isn't. Because the ones that were have been purged. So this is a whole nest of vipers. And they might be all those things, but collectively, individually, they can be like stupid, but like Nadine Dorries, Jesus Christ. But but collectively, they're getting some good advice on what to do, on how to deal with the situation. For my money, I would say that advice is probably coming from Russia, but, you know, I don't know everything. But they're not going to get rid of Boris Johnson. That's my prediction. I don't think they're going to get rid of him. Why? Because he's the golden goose. He can get away with this shit. No one else could. Matt Hancock couldn't. Obviously. Duh. But, yeah, they got brazen it out. Owen Patterson couldn't. But also, I don't believe that Michael Gove could. I don't believe that Priti Patel could. I don't believe that Rishi Sunak could. I don't think they could get away with it. And yet Boris Johnson, he gets away with so much shit. He gets away with so much shit. And people forget. People have got short memories. If they keep him on to the next election, there'll be something else. Do you know what I mean? The electorate is distracted most of the time. I know there was 30% of the people who really care about this stuff. There's 30% of people who are, enraged by Boris Johnson. There's 30% of the people who love Boris Johnson and just, want his babies. Obviously, there's a lot of women out there who seem to, judging by how many children he's got. And then you got about 40% of the population who don't give a fuck. I mean, they really just don't care about politics. That's fair enough. I don't have a problem with this. I don't think we should bring in compulsory voting. I don't think it will make more people vote for left-wing parties because it doesn't in Australia, where they do have compulsory voting. I don't see it as a thing, this panacea that's going to save us all from the Tories. What will save us all from the Tories is a progressive alliance. That's what we need. If the Lib Dems and Labour and Plaid Cymru and the SNP and the Greens all got together, they could destroy the Tories in the next election. But they have to work together. Whether they do that or not, that's another matter. Anyway, so I'm going to jump back into the comments. Thank you again, David, for that $158 Hong Kong dollar super chat. Thank you very much. I will pay some bills with that. Well, I'll give Catherine some money towards the bills before she throws me out. Canal Thump, 5 Singapore dollars. Thank you very much, Canal. I really appreciate that. And also my sound setup, which Canal helped me with. Thank you very, very much. Graham UK is threatening Brits expat with closing bank accounts. Oh, that's nice. If this country actually believes in justice, they'll do something I can't express publicly about this cabinet. Indeed, as a warning. If anyone watched Babylon 5, this is what I'd like to do to Boris Johnson at some point. Okay, so if you're a Babylon 5 fan, you will get that reference. If not, then phew, I just flew through the censorship thing there of obviously not being allowed to wish death on anyone or anything like that, because I would never do that on live streaming social media. Anthony Boland says politicians in this country don't have the brains to work together. Unfortunately, they couldn't run a tap alone in real opposition. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, they've got good advisors. That's the thing. If you ever watch Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister, obviously the people advising these dickheads know what they're doing. Here's how you get out of this sticky situation, because everything that's happened in Parliament has happened a million times before, and they know. This inquiry thing, I can't remember, and I might be wrong, but I can't remember politicians hiding up behind inquiries that much. But then again, I was a bit younger then. But until Tony Blair and hiding behind the Iraq inquiry, saying, "No, we can't answer questions about this because we're going to have an inquiry," and then they had another inquiry about something else, and they had the Cash for Honours inquiry, and they had the Cash for Questions, inquiry, and every time they were asked about it, they said, "Oh, we can't comment because we're having an inquiry." And then there was the expenses, when fucking politicians were taking expenses for those ridiculous things, and they had an inquiry about that. And if they were asked a question about it, they say, "Well, we're waiting for the results, the findings of the inquiry." And it's a classic dodge for these scumbags that isn't afforded the rest of us. I mean, it really isn't afforded the rest of us. I'll tell you what, if you get caught in a job doing something wrong, and the company has a set of guidelines, you know, for dealing with this kind of thing, you get suspended while the inquiry takes place. You don't get to keep fucking working. You don't keep getting to run the fucking company. No, you get suspended pending an inquiry. So it's actually in your interest for the inquiry to wrap up as quickly as possible. The way these cunts do it, right? They go, we're going to have an inquiry. It could last for 6 months, could last for 12 months until the political winds are blown another fucking way. And then they'll release the report. Like they did with the Russia report, which was barely fucking mentioned, the Russian interference in the referendum. They said, oh, we didn't even look into it. We didn't even look into it, this fucking report, because we were told not to by the government. Nice. And that's what they do. Or they might give the report to Boris Johnson. He might sit on it. Or he might just throw it in the bin. Or he might just take the report and ignore the findings of it, like he did when Priti Patel, scumbag, fucking cylindrical fucking Hitler, Pingu cunt, she was found to have bullied another fucking parliament, civil servant out of his job. And the independent inquiry found that she had broken the ministerial code. And Boris Johnson just threw that in the bin. She said, okay, she's staying on. I love her, because she's evil. Thing is, we need to topple these fuckers, and I don't think that they're going to topple themselves. I don't think they're going to kill. They're not going to slay the golden goose that somehow has this appeal to the common man in a way that none of the other fuckers have. We need to protest. We need 1 million people sitting outside, sitting all along bloody Whitehall every fucking day, not letting the fucking cunt come out in the car. That is it. That's what we've got to do. You know, we make him use the fucking back entrance, make him use the tunnels to Parliament in order to get in and out. We need to occupy Parliament Square and just fucking sit there and say, like, that's it. You know, until we have a general election, you can fuck off. We need to take direct action. That's what we need to do. And we need to do it before we get thrown in jail for doing it. Because Priti Patel is making peaceful protest one of the fucking tenets of our democracy, one of our pillars of our democracy, I should say. She's making it illegal. She's making peaceful protest illegal in Britain in 2022. She's essentially illegalising all Romani traveller people. She's doing this, and they're getting away with it. And there isn't that much opposition in the way that I'd like to see opposition. I want people to be on the streets. I will join them. I'll organise the fucking thing if I had any fucking money. Jesus Christ. I mean, this is the mad thing, isn't it? Like, the other side has so much money they can pay for AstroTurf, so they fake grassroots supporters who go on, get on the social media platforms and talk and stuff. But whenever you see a group, a meeting of Tories or Brexiteers or right-wingers, it's always tiny. There's like 5 fucking people there and a dog. You know, it's pathetic compared with how many the left can muster, how many the pro-EU lot can muster to get on the streets and protest. It's absolutely pathetic. The biggest protest of the right was back in, God, it was 20 years ago now, against the banning of fox hunting. An incredibly cruel sport where rich people rip apart an animal with other animals for their own edification. That's part of rural life, mate. Yeah, it's like fucking stabbing each other as part of fucking, living on a sink estate in Croydon. But, I don't think it's defensible. It's still fucking murder, mate. But it's part of it's just what we do, innit? It's just what we do. Oh, fuck off. My audio is too low. Oh, thank you very much, Canal. I'll turn it up then. Sorry. I did turn it down because I felt like I was shouting too much. Is that a bit better? Yeah, I hope so. Oh, it is quite low. I'm going to call off Ben Chambers. He hates being on my live show, so I'll just say, hey, Ben, how's it going, mate?
Hey, Graham, how you doing?
I'm all right. You're live to the internet. I'm doing a show. I'm sorry, I've overran a bit by 15 minutes, so, yeah. How you doing?
What do you mean I'm live to the internet?
You are live to... Everyone can hear what you're saying. Everyone on the internet... Literally everyone. Like
everyone on the whole internet.
3.5 billion people can hear what you're saying right now. So say something intelligent.
Oh, I've just been watching PMQs. I can't be too intelligent.
I was very, very sweary, to say the least.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. just trying to soak it all up, take it all in. It's quite remarkable, really, isn't it? I mean, he had no other choice. He did what I suppose he had to do, what he felt forced to do. I was amazed there were so many Tories there.
And they were all on his side, and no one questioned him. No one gave him any shit. And his excuse was he didn't know it was a party. That was the issue. Did you have that on the sweepstake? He didn't know it was a party.
No, I suppose that was an option, but I've just tweeted, and this is a true story. I've just been caught doing 120 miles per hour on the A1, but I'm sorry, but I genuinely thought it was a racetrack. All that glass and metal hurtling by at fast speeds.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I only joined in for 25 minutes.
Okay.
And with hindsight, I should have asked everyone else on the road to go home. That is how ludicrous his apology, to be honest, is.
Well put, sir. Well put. Clem Fandango says, hi, Ben. On Facebook.
Hi, Clem.
Hi, Clem.
Lovely Clem Fandango of Word Up Design.
Yes, yeah.
Love her.
And also Toast of London. Isn't that Matt Berry's character in Toast of London? Is that Clem Fandango? I can't.
Clem, yeah, do the Fandango.
Anyway, Ben, I'm going to call you back in a bit because I do want to have a quick chat with you. Some exciting stuff that's going down. And David Huada wants you to know that Boris is a huge, huge bastard.
Look, that's definitely one of the very many colourful and more mild expletives I think I possibly want to conjure up at this point in time.
I think I dropped the C-bomb at least 100 times watching.
No, he's going to limp on till summer, isn't he? And
watching PMQs.
Some other thing that finally finishes him off. But we will see.
We'll see.
I think to be honest, like a lot of people, we ought to wait for Sue's inquiry. I think it's impossible to say whether or not he was there until Sue's. I mean, there's a woman. I think someone McLean, on Politics Live. Basically, I think Anna Subi said she sounds like she's in a cult. How can you defend this now?
Yeah.
But it's pathetic, really, isn't it? It really is. Anyway, I'll go and let you get back to whatever it is you were doing.
Okay.
And,
live show.
I'll give you a call later.
I was just wrapping up. I'll give you a call in about 10 minutes. All right.
Oh, okay. No worries.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you soon. Take care, Ben. Bye-bye. So that was Ben Chambers of 16 Million Rising podcast, which I really do recommend. It's very good. It's got music, so it's a bit more jazzy than what I do. Anyway, so I am going to head off now. I will see you again tomorrow on the new channel, Graham Hughes Travels. Hopefully it will work this time. And I'll be talking about the country of Chad in Africa. So join me for that. And then afterwards, we'll be heading over to the Graham Hughes Discord server. And we'll be having a travel quiz. So if you fancy a travel quiz or you fancy learning something about Chad, please join me for that. Thank you to everyone who has left a comment. Thank you to the super chatters out there. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And you don't just warm the cockles of my heart, you warm my actual body by allowing me to pay the fucking electricity bills. So thank you. You're awesome. I'm very sorry about this shower of shite that's running the country. Hopefully together we can get rid of them. That's the hope. So until next time, I will say thanks for watching and hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.